No, I'm just kidding. CuddleCore, you're here. What's going on?
Hi there. Going good. How are you? How's everyone?
We are just big chilling. Is it possible we can maybe get a camera from you? Oh, there you are. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
What up?
Damn, you got the whole Red Bull get up. Holy shit.
Yeah, I wear it pretty often.
Damn, that hat's nice. They sent me a fridge too, but I didn't get the hat. I'm kind of hold up now.
And the hat is they're like, for athletes, they have like gear and stuff for us, and we get to
Mhm.
pick from a lot of it. I have a lot of hats.
Oh,
A
for
lot.
athletes, I ain't shit. Got it. Cool. Well, welcome to the show, CuddleCore. Nice to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, we're super excited to have you. We are all obviously on the show a fan of fighting games, some more games than others. Me personally, I'm a big Tekken fanatic, so I was like, yo, we got to get CuddleCore on this thing. I don't know how we got to do it. I don't know who we got to talk to. I don't know who we got to beat up, but we got to have CuddleCore come through now. You've been in this community for so long. I'm just gonna jump right into it. You've been in this community. I've seen your Tekken Tag 2 result. Obviously, you didn't just start playing with Tekken Tag. So give us like a brief rundown of your origin with just Tekken.
Well, I started playing Tekken when I was a little kid
Mhm,
because it was always in the house. My dad played fighting games a lot, had a ton of fighting games. He's one of those gamers where like if the game looks interesting on the cover, I'm gonna pick it up off the shelf. Like he's that kind of guy, casual gamer, but like really likes the fun dynamic stuff, and that's fighting
mhm,
games for you. So he had all like the old Tekkens, and as a kid, you're watching your parent play,
mhm.
and you're like, "Man, this looks really cool. I'd like to get in on that, how can I how can I do that?" So, I would play with him. I would play with him for hours, and, it made me very competitive, almost to the point where I would cry. So,
Oh,
it
dag.
yeah, yeah, I hated losing. So, my dad's like, "Well, instead of crying, and whining about it, just go to practice mode. Look through, what you can do. Look at the moves and then
Mm.
the combos and stuff." And I'm like, so I did, and it kind of taught me how to just go deeper into the game instead of making excuses and just whining about it. Even as a little kid, it was a valuable lesson. But yeah, definitely because of my dad playing fighting games early on. That's definitely the reason why I got into the game, and I just stuck with it. Because I think out of all the fighting games I played as a kid, because I played a lot of them. I
Mhm,
bought a lot of them. KOF, Street Fighter, Soul Calibur, Tekken, you
mhm,
name it. I had it all.
mm.
But Tekken for me, I felt I was able to express myself, as a, competitor, like a fighting game player. I felt like I was able to express myself the best
Mhm.
with Tekken. Having options like moving in and out of the background and having 8 options for one move that somebody does, I
Mm.
like that. I felt like I was able to express myself, the way I wanted to playing Tekken, I believe.
Nice. So which Tekken was it? Was it? I mean, I think you and I are probably around the same age. Which one was your earliest one? Do you remember?
I played 1. I started with 1, but
Mm.
1
Damn.
came out, like, 3 years or 4 years before I was born.
Yeah.
So, when I was, like, older, I played Tekken 1 because, that was one of the games in the house. Even though it was years older than me, like, I played it. He had 1, he had 2 and 3. So I played all of them,
Wow.
but I started with 1, then I played 2, then I played 3 because they were already out by the time I was born.
There you go.
Yeah, that's kinda what happened, but I definitely feel like, one of my earliest memories of just falling in love with the game was with Tag 1 because,
Mm.
it
That's
was,
the
like,
one.
September, I think it was September, or a little earlier, but my dad had bought the PlayStation 2, it just dropped here,
Mhm.
and, that paycheck, was looking nice, and, he got the PS2, had, like, a new TV with I came home and I saw all this, right? As a kid, you're like, "Oh my god, look at this big screen TV and the PS2," and you hear the sound coming from the surround sound system in the house, and so
Mhm.
you have the Tekken 1 just, character select screen, music starting up, and you're like, "Is this Tekken?" And my dad's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, Tag 1's iconic, and I still remember everything about it, so yes, Tag 1, I think, though, has a huge place in my heart.
Mm. Yeah, Tag One is definitely the one. Now, you said you've been playing Tekken since such a young age, and I know, like when we're all kids, our hobbies and interests are always changed. Like when I was a kid, I was like, "Yo, Dad, I like Pokemon cards." Then I was like, "Dad, throw the Pokemon cards. I want Yu-Gi-Oh now." But
Right.
did you just like you just knew early on, like, "Yo, all these other hobbies are cool that I have, but Tekken is the one that I'm sticking with."
I really feel like it. the older I got, gaming didn't go away for me. It was a consistent hobby. Uh, I was kind of a quiet kid, and I felt like the way I think looking back on it, the way I want to express myself, I was able to do it
Mhm.
by playing games and expressing that through fighting games, through adventure games, because sometimes, socializing was kind of hard for me.
Okay.
Um, so I think those were ways to like help me with that.
Mhm.
So I think I stuck with uh, Tekken and just fighting games, definitely because of that. It taught me a lot about myself,
Mhm.
and there were people that were like me,
Mhm.
that I was able to interact with them because the Bluetooth mic and the headsets, that was
There
a
you
thing.
go.
And you go in the lobbies and you fight each other. You made friends that way, that you would sometimes end up meeting at tournaments years later.
Mhm.
But that kind of helped me become more social too. That's probably why I stuck with it, because I think that was one of the biggest ways that I started to socialize with people, was because of playing fighting games and Tekken.
Well, so was one so like your first tournament experience, it was like more of like a positive thing than like an intimidating one? Because I know some chicks who just like they just straight up say like, yeah, it's kind of intimidating just being in there with a bunch of, a bunch of not even just like dudes, just like competitive people in general. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just that atmosphere. So it seems like you have like the opposite experience from one, best I could tell.
Yeah.
Right. So, hmm, I think that when it's women in a tournament setting where it's predominantly male,
Mhm.
that's the part that's intimidating, because women and men are competitors, so that's not the problem there. The
Right.
Mhm.
problem there is the fact that you're like the only one there that looks like you do, and
That's right.
everybody else, they all can seek comfort in the fact that they look like each other,
That's right.
and so that is intimidating. Um, but I had befriended so many players online that were in my area, like Chicago-ish area, the Chicagoland area, before
Mhm.
I even went offline, that when we all met up, we had already been talking and stuff. So us meeting offline was just, the final step. Um, when I did compete in my first tournament, I didn't really think of it as intimidating. I was just very focused.
That's right.
There were people there that supported me. Uh, it made me feel at home, but it was because I'd already done so much socializing online that when I saw these people offline, it was like a reunion of sorts.
Mm.
So it was a good experience for me.
That's good. I'm really happy to hear that too. And of course, I'm looking at just all the things that you've achieved because, like, I mean, I know who you are. Being a Midwest native, like, the name CuddleCore, and I'm all the way in Nebraska. We're 8 hours apart, driving wise at least. But you know, uh, Vice magazine and Red Bull and Forbes 30 under 30. So I just got to know, sometimes when you just achieve all these great things, or like when you're doing really well, you're like, I'm just here to play for the sport. But I mean, people look up to you now. Like there are a lot of young people, a lot of young people of color, a lot of young women. I mean, did you know like this was what you're going to be destined to be? Like you just were a kid playing Tekken, but now you're like, damn, I'm CuddleCore whooping your favorite player's ass now.
Uh, I honestly, I had no idea. I did this because I liked it and
Mhm.
because I knew I could get better at it. That was it. I I just I didn't wake up one day and think, man, I'm about to be like a pro esports player. Like I didn't wake up and think that or become one of the best players in America or anything like that. I kind of just
Mhm.
I knew that with anything I did, I want to be good at it, and that's because my parents raised me that way.
Right.
So I carried that with me with anything I did. When I went to college, when I graduated, when I realized I wanted to be a pro player, I took that with me everywhere. Excellence is the standard, and sometimes that makes things a little difficult where you feel like you have to be the best 24/7. I don't say 100%, I say 200% now. That I give my 200%, and that can be a
Damn.
little exhausting. So I have to create that balance, but because I have that standard for myself and I carved my own lane in a space that really doesn't give you any sort of blueprint or
Mhm.
any sort of guidance whatsoever, I formed my own way, and but I worked hard. And if it's
Right.
something I cared about, I did the work. I studied my footage. I asked questions of my training partners. I played them to hundreds of games. I asked the honest questions like, what could I have done better in this matchup? Like, I did what I needed to do. And yes, that was sometimes hard because as a woman, you're putting yourself out there.
True.
And, you could, when you lose, people are going to judge you. When you win, people are going to judge you. But
True.
like, I knew at the end of the day, my peers respected me. They knew what I was doing good work and that I was an upcoming player who had all the potential in the world, just like any other man or any other person who was
Mhm.
doing, I mean, who has like, the potential to go far, but a community has to help cultivate that. So I was around really good people who helped me out, and that was really it. But um I like that I can be that for people now. I really like that I can be that influence, because I want people to understand, like, you don't have to follow what your favorite player is doing to get to that spot, but you can, take them as an example.
Sure.
You don't have to do what, like, the known faces of the FGC are doing to be successful. You can find your own lane as long as it's authentic to you.
That's right.
It Then you can do it, and I kind of have stepped into that role of, that spotlight, and I've accepted it.
Mhm.
As long as I can give back to my community, in my way, in my own way, I you know, I'm glad I can be that for other people because other people were that for me, so
That's right. And I when I listen to you tell this story, it almost feels like a bit of a superhero origin story. Like, you're really good, you're talented, you've been practicing, and now you kind of have you have this new persona kind of bestowed upon you. Now you're not only just playing for yourself, but whether you like it or not, you're playing in representation with so many other people. I mean,
Mhm.
as a competitor, how do you keep, just a clear mind? Like, hey, I know I represent a lot of stuff, but I'm also here to compete and do a damn good job. And with so many people out there just I mean, let's just call it for what it is. There's just a lot of haters out there. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
How do you stay so mentally strong?
There are times where it's, frustrating and it's
Sure.
like people don't know what they're talking about. Like, you're not in my shoes. You have not competed on the same level as I have. So you're in the
Mhm.
stands talking behind a keyboard. What would you know about anything? that's
Ooh, hold
that's
on
always kind
now.
of
Hold on now, CuddleCore. Talk your shit. Talk
and
your shit.
it's like sports, like people will say what they would have done, coulda, shoulda, woulda. But like if unless you're
Mhm.
in that player's shoes or that athlete's shoes, you're literally just sitting on the on in a seat doing what you're doing, judging. So kind of understanding that like what I do is solely based on my own decisions. It's not about anybody
Right.
else or anything like that. It's just me in the game. And that's something that I've always kind of used as like a theme for when I compete. It's just me in the game because I'm also not going to put the weight on myself to represent all of that. I'm a person, I'm a human being, and I'm a
Right.
damn good player. And that's all that matters. If other people can be respected the same way and they don't have all that weight on them, why would I need that? I'm just like them. The only difference is that I look different. And so yeah, I always try to make sure I'm very kind to myself that I don't feel like I have to represent all of this. Because honestly, that's why I'm here, is because
Mhm.
I represent myself.
That's
that's
right.
that's it. But in turn, what happens is that I'm seen as an example of like what success looks like, not just when you're a male fighting game player who's a pro, but like a woman as well,
Right.
and that pro fighting game players can have different looks, and there's that representation in that sense. But I don't go on the
Yeah.
stage thinking that. I go on the stage thinking, okay, these are the things that I prepared for. Okay, me and the coach, we've been going through this. We looked at the pages, the archives, we've been studying, we've been prepping for weeks. That's all I care about. Is I have a coach, by the way, and that I care about doing myself proud, but of course, somewhere deep down inside, I'm like, I also want to do coach proud too because he's been training me for like a year and some change, and it's done a lot for my gameplay overall. So it's really just me representing that. I don't think about, oh man, I gotta represent all the women because also that's not fair because they represent themselves too,
That's
and
right.
that's very unfair of me to be that for all of them when all their stories are so different. Like that's not
Yo,
fair.
that's interesting that you mentioned you have a coach because like just like giving off your like your personality and energy, I would think you're the one doing the coaching. So that's it,
I do.
like so. Oh, so you do coaching as well? Okay.
Mhm.
Damn, that's crazy. So why did you get a coach? It's just like a gameplay thing or like a mental thing? Like what was like the purpose behind that?
Yes, so both. So both.
Okay.
So when COVID happened and the lockdown,
Mm,
happened in Illinois, I still wanted to continue to grow, but at that time, there weren't really online tournaments and things like that, but I wanted to expand, the way I played the game and how I thought about it. So, my manager, she was like, "Okay, how about we bring on Trungy, who's an old school player who is one of the most technical players in the game. His, results, his accomplishments, his performances are just astounding.
Right.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I remember when I was coming up and, I would watch him play at tournaments. I'm like, "Jesus." To the point. So pretty much, she thought he would be a really good fit for the team in terms of being a coach. And I was like, okay, because I told I still wanted to continue improving,
Yeah.
and so they brought him on, and I started meeting with him like every week while an online league called ICFC. They had
Yep.
different regions for Tekken. It was like the Wednesday showdown. People were tuning in every Wednesday
Mhm.
to watch people from North America, Europe, and Asia compete in a league, and you would accumulate a certain amount of points from first to 13th, maybe or seventh.
Sure.
And so then at the end of that season, the top 8 who qualified would fight in a final. So from like seasons 1 to 3 or 4, I think, um, that's when I had Trungi as a coach that entire time, and I saw my game evolve completely. I won 2 finals because of training underneath him,
Yep.
um, and my overall gameplay just skyrocketed because of it. So having that coach really helped me see the game a certain way, especially in terms of adapting. You're
Right.
adapting from round to round. There's 60 seconds within a round. I now have more strategies. I am a heart kind of player. The way I play is I feel a lot, intuitive, but I also want to tap into the technical aspect of myself. So that's
Mm.
what Trungi does for me. And him and his wife actually serve as a really huge support system
Oh,
for me.
dang, that's
So
crazy.
yeah, I've known them for years. She's also been a really big fan of mine. S when I first started competing as a pro 3 years ago. So
Okay.
yeah.
I love that. And I guess I from not so great competitor to somebody who's at the top of their game. I mean, what is your training process like? I mean, I know you mentioned when you were a kid, you would go into training mode, look at all the combos. And in Tekken, for people who don't know that are watching, there are a lot of buttons to be pressed in Tekken in a lot of different directions. But what is your training process now? Like, do you take more time for, the mental aspect? Are you more of like, I got to make sure my precision with my combos are precise? Like, what's up?
It's It's multiple things. So in
Okay.
training, it's never just one thing. Some days or some weeks, there are things that maybe I'm curious about, or maybe that a certain situation that I wanted to defend better against. So I practice it in training mode. With the training dummy in training mode or practice mode, you can recreate the situation and you can start to problem solve the ways you can fight um, or defend against that certain situation. Uh, I believe that whenever you are playing, whether it's for fun or not, there are certain things that you're gonna come across in the game that you're gonna be like,
Hmm.
"I feel like I can do something there." So then I recreate the situation literally right after I play, so that's fresh in my mind, and
Hmm.
then, I start to figure out every way can I interrupt this move? Can I interrupt the string? Can I duck it? Can I step it? Can I use a rage art? Okay, maybe I should just backdash it. What can my character do? And in Tekken is about problem solving. Fighting games and competing is about problem solving,
Right.
especially because every character is so different. So my answer to fighting against this particular character will be different than somebody else and how they respond to it because of who they choose. So that's really the way I train. And sometimes it's a lot of the time, though, it's me looking at footage with my coach, especially of me playing the game, seeing where I did things right, seeing where I want to do things better. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it's still a little hard when you watch yourself going through losing to something in particular, especially when it was so close. But then the way I see it is that's the only way you're gonna get better so that
Right.
you don't lose to the same thing twice. You need to see it.
Mhm.
You need to relive the situation so that you remember that's not what you want to lose to again. Wash, rinse, repeat. And so I think watching my footage, but also watching other people who play my character and just they play a certain way that I just really love has really helped me so much because now I can switch play styles when I need. Like my
Mm.
coach will say, like, hey, switch to this style, or I'm like, okay. Yeah, and then I can uh adapt accordingly if I need to change game plans. Um, but yeah, that's just one kind of, example.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it a lot. You kind of take the Doctor Strange approach where like you just look at a timeline of, an interaction and you just kind of try to account for every which way it could go. And I think that's how you're supposed to get better. I think, and again, I don't play Tekken competitively, but just looking at the overall scope of competitive gaming in general, I think sometimes there's a lack of accountability for where I'm at, skill wise. And some people, choose to get sad and they mope or whatever. And there's a large part that sometimes, you'd have to do a little bit of that. But I do think that no matter what, you got to get back in that training room. You got to look those partners up. You got to do whatever you got to do. And you got to just, hit the ground running with it. And, I guess, my next question would be, you've been playing Tekken since the very beginning. but I noticed, Xiao Yu and Elisa Boskanovich. Why those two? And at what point in time did you know that you needed to go solo Elisa?
Yeah, so Xiao Yu, I started playing her when I played Tekken 3,
Right.
and I thought she was just super fluid. The movement was great. Like evasiveness. I love evasive characters, love movement. I've always been a movement-based kind of player. That's how I get that's how I make people make mistakes. So Xiao Yu was that for me until tag 2. She was
Okay.
still like I put her in the front, right? She would always be in the front. I'd start with her.
Right.
Elisa was like my secondary. She used to be my secondary. That's the funny part.
Right.
Because in Tekken 6, I was like, "Oh, Elisa's new to the game. She looks kind of cool. She's really appealing in terms of look, but like her style is really different than what I'm used to."
Okay.
Elisa's move list was like one of the smallest, most condensed move lists I had seen at the time. Xiao Yu had like 130 something moves.
Oh, damn.
Elisa had like 67. And I'm like, I wanna take this on. I thought it was a cool challenge. She looked
Okay.
cool. I want to try it. At one point, I really didn't think I was gonna be able to master her. I really didn't. I just didn't think it was, the I didn't think she fit my play style.
Okay.
And then, Tekken Tag 2 happened. I had them both on a team, and then Tekken 7 dropped.
Mm.
And Xiao Yu originally like, I started with her. Like, I used her a lot more, but Elisa was, like, the secondary. Xiao Yu was, like, really well-rounded.
Right.
Like, she was good, but she wasn't, like, top tier, but she was good.
He
And
was
then
good.
they, like, nerfed her in this way that did not make sense. It made it so much harder, I think, at times to play her competitively. So I let her sit in the back for a bit, and then Elisa became my main because they kept on buffing Elisa for some reason, and I
Yeah.
said, "Cool." And then I found my own way and my own style with her. But when the pandemic happened, and there were tons of online tournaments happening, like major tournaments for Tekken happening online, uh, my training partner and my coach thought that I should use Xiaoyu.
Mm.
I was in a grand final, for WSOE 2 online. I was in a grand final, and, they thought I should counter pick
Oh
with
wow.
Xiaoyu, and I
In
said,
grand finals?
"Yeah," and I said
Damn. That's a hell of
I
a
was
place.
yeah, and I said, "Guys, like, I'm really not sure. I use her for practice, but I'm not sure if this is the time." They said, "Why not?" And I said, "Okay." I was able to reset the bracket by doing it. I was like, "Oh, okay, so maybe I'm able to really do this." Ultimately, I didn't win the final, but
Hmm.
the fact that I was able to reset it and use her to counterpick, it gave me the confidence I needed to bring her back into my roster.
Mhm.
And all the ICFCs I was in after that, all the leagues, the tournaments I did, I used her. I would switch. I would counterpick with her. She was finally back in my rotation. But I think because of the encouragement of my training partner, like my peers and my coach saying like, "Yo, your Xiaoyu was amazing. Like, believe that. Like, it's good." And I'm like, "Okay."
Shao
But they
Yu's
Well,
a
that's the
tough
encouraged me.
character.
that's the reinforcement you want from the coach, right? Like, get you to that point. So that makes sense to me. It's
Yeah, because
crazy.
I really was like, because I thought about like, statistically, like how I have to play it, it was a little. It's harder. Because Tekken 7 is a game where like you get launched once,
Ooh,
you could die. And
ooh,
Xiao Yu, I have to take a risk, right? So if I'm taking a risk and then I get launched for taking said risk, I'm like, sometimes you want to play it safe. You want a character who can do that without, you want a character who can do all of that without you having to risk everything.
Feel that.
But there are times where throwing in that like sauce is so important. And Xiao Yu was such a big part of my competitive uh career that I'm glad I have her back for those reasons because I like you have to mix it up sometimes. Sometimes it changes how your opponent is fighting you. So
yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, again, we all follow fighting games very well, and these rosters aren't getting any smaller. I
no.
mean, we're only adding more characters upon more characters, and the idea that you can maybe solo somebody is starting to become a little bit more far-fetched. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's difficult when there's like, 60 plus matchups to learn in these fighting games. So, I mean, obviously, you've done very well for yourself. And, to my next point, I watch a lot of E-League.
Yeah.
I'm a big supporter of that, putting video games on TV and just pissing the boomers off. I'm like, yo, put that shit on TV and make them mad. Um,
And
yeah, your time at E-League. I mean, talk to me about that. I don't think I've ever talked to a player, at least a fighting game player, about that whole experience.
Uh wow. That was the first. televised experience I ever had like that. And it was during a time where I was still in school. It was my last semester
Okay.
before I graduated. I played Tekken like every 2 weeks, but when I
Mhm.
wasn't playing, I was watching it. It was still on my mind. It was in my heart. But I got an email. I was one of the 20 people brought to compete on TV in ELeague, something I'd never heard of at the time. And I was also asked if I want to be a captain. And there was 4 captains, I was one of them, and I was the only woman. And I wasn't used to really, like, leadership positions like that, especially for something I considered a hobby. So, it really was, like, a first-time experience for me in multiple ways. E-League was amazing. The staff there really they were they were happily surprised at how well we treated everything that they did for us, whether it was the
Sure.
rooms we were in to practice or, any of, like, the accommodations that they gave us. We were all so respectful,
Mhm.
and I guess they were kinda used to people being a certain way when they were on there, I guess. But I think it was because, we were used to having to do everything for ourselves, our community.
Right.
The tech community didn't have money like that, especially the American one. So we were all just keeping the community alive by ourselves. So any opportunity we got to like give more exposure to a game we loved, why would we spit in the face of it? So we all had a really good time. I was really happy to prove myself to myself. And I was, everybody else got to see it because I was an upcoming player. I beat one of the best players in the country and the world at the time. I beat him twice,
Mm.
uh, convincingly, and he was nothing but a good sport about it. But I always respect him, and we're on the same team now for Red Bull. But that's funny.
Oh, there you
So,
go.
Let's go.
but also the fact that, like, I took out the remaining 4 players on his team, a team that was kinda predicted to maybe even take it all at one point. So, that was very interesting. I've never been in a situation where I was competing under pressure while being recorded live. I
Mhm.
had never experienced something like that. I went to tournaments, right? But that was completely different. But I learned that when I'm in that zone, there's that fire,
Mhm.
that everything I've learned, everything I was taught, um, just all came together. Uh, my training partner at the time, one of my training partners, he said like you got it. Like he pretty much he really was very confident in the fact that I knew the matchups, especially Jack, because there were 2 Jack players
Ooh, Jack is
on.
just an asshole of a character, ain't he? I tell you.
Yeah, he's, very good, but the thing is, Jack versus Elisa, I am very well trained in the matchup because my
Mm.
training partners in the past were Jack players. Uh,
Oh,
so 2 of the best Jack players in America were on that team,
nice.
and I was very prepared for that. Um, but yeah, and then the other 2, like, I just you see those characters enough, you know what you're doing. You play in tournaments, you know what's up, and, I don't know, like, one of them used Elisa. I just counterpicked with Xiaoyu and fought against Elisa with Xiaoyu. Like, it's just their
Mm.
strategy, and I think I learned that I was capable. I was very capable of doing this in high stakes, and if I wanted to take it on full time, I could. I think it was a E-League helped me realize that. It really helped me realize that, and I still have the big ol' medal and everything, but, my team was great too. They were wonderful. They played well. Um, they were amazing, and we trusted each other, so that was cool too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just a lot of that that I think really needs to be played into effect. And when I think of the grassroots community overall, and I again love Tekken World Tour, love Capcom Pro Tour, even like Nintendo starting to come around for Smash, but at its core, this was a grassroots thing that this community had to help build way back in the 80s at the arcades, and here we are today. And I see a lot of the stuff that you've achieved, and I don't know who laid the foundation like in the arcades back then, but like if I had to be a bet in person, I'd bet that they're like looking at people like yourself and are very happy of the things that you've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the I call them the old heads. The
Old
old heads
heads?
yeah, the old heads of the community, some of, like, the old school players, like, they've told me, like, how much respect they have for me.
Mhm.
They'll just say it, or, like, if I announce something, they're like, "Yo, like, great job, you're killing it, like, she's a great, ambassador for this or
Yeah.
that," when I announce certain things, and, they support what I'm
Mhm.
doing because they also they've said, like, it's not just playing the game, it's also being great at the game, but, like, what are your morals? What are your ethics, your beliefs? How authentic are you?
Mhm.
Um, like, your brand, what does that look like? What do you care about? Who are you when you get off the stage? And
True.
I tried really hard to make that known, whether it's in my actions or what I'm doing. Like I try and show that. But like, yeah, they I've definitely gotten the thumbs up multiple times from from many people about that, and it wasn't easy,
Okay.
but it's the only it's you know, I I I did what I wanted to do, and I did it my way, and I'm happy that I did. So
Hey, I hear
Much
that. Now,
respect, man. That
oh
is
yeah.
especially like not to harp on the fact being a woman, in the space, but
it's okay.
it's hard. We had like a girl, Supergirl Kells, a couple weeks ago, and she kind of had like similar experience. It's tough, but she just had the right mindset, and it really pays off. You get the respect and recognition, and it shouldn't be because you happen to be exceptionally talented and you're a woman. You're just exceptionally talented because you're just fucking good. You know what I'm saying? So I rock with that.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's just a plus that I'm a woman too.
There you
I
go.
just, it's one of those things where it's like, but I always kind of say like I'm super fortunate that I have people who love me to death, and I have bonds with them. So
Mhm.
when I play with them, they're some of the best players in the world, and I share that camaraderie, that respect, and we genuinely just genuinely want each other to continue to grow. Like that's it. Like
Oh,
and they only see that.
Mhm.
And there's never any discrimination against me in my inner circle. Like, like there's all that respect. And my community respects me. Um, and so I definitely feel like that's that safe space for me that allows me to grow and thrive continuously the way I want.
Yeah, that's what it should be all about. Now, speaking of growing and thriving, let's talk about some of your achievements. Now, obviously, I could pull up Wikipedia, I could pull up Tekken World Tour brackets, and we can talk about placements all day. But I think for people at your stature of level of play, sometimes it might not just be a matter of placements or like the Forbes 30 under 30. Like, what would you say a crowning achievement of yours is? Like, and it could be something little. It could be like, yo, I ate breakfast this one morning before, this match, and I'm happy I did that finally. Or it could be anything.
Mm. What do I think my biggest achievement is?
Well, maybe your biggest or one of your biggest. I know there's a lot because you're still writing out your history as you're in it, but it
Hmm.
could be maybe one of them.
um. Hmm.
I know I put you on the spot. I'm sorry, but I gotta know because I gotta see how your brain works.
Hmm. Okay. I think one of my biggest achievements was becoming a Red Bull player.
Okay.
It wasn't what I expected. I really, like I said earlier, I just do my thing. I
Mhm.
do it in excellence. I put myself out there. I do my work very, very well, and I'm consistent with that. Um, Red Bull took notice of that. I really appreciate them for it, and because they felt like they knew that their their beliefs aligned with mine, and I wanted this. I didn't exactly know what it looked like, but I knew that I had one of the goals I had was to be on a team like this and to rep them. And for esports and for fighting games, that was a really big deal to me, which meant like it's like a badge that shows that I'm getting to another level in my career,
That's right.
one that will allow me to like branch out uh, and expand, not just in fighting games, but different avenues, which I've been doing anyway, but like even more so. And I
Mhm.
have resources accessible to me that makes my life easier as a player, and I don't have to struggle. Because that does happen in the fighting game community, and I'm sure you know that. I'm sure you've seen. But yeah, but along with that, I think just the fact that I achieved it, and it's something that is not easy to do because they don't just pick anybody, and which means they scout people out. They look for a while, and I stayed true to that, and I stood by everything that I believed in. I didn't have to change who I was,
Right.
and I think that's a big accomplishment for me, and being a black woman and having it and repping that, um, I think is a very very big deal for me because in terms of esports. I don't always see a lot of black women like on the competitive side, depending
mhm.
on
True.
the game, and So I'd like to be that representation when it comes to that. Like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I put in a lot of work for this. Like,
Mhm.
and it's only gonna get better for representation later. I know it because it's already happening, and I'm happy to be a part of that and the change. But I'm proud of myself, and I think that's a really big one for me because, like I said, I get to do what I love, but you know, I get it's not a struggle. It's literally like I know my worth, and Red Bull knows it too. So that's been great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Damn,
I
love it.
love that. I love that. So can we maybe talk a little bit about your time at Rebel? Because Rebel, when they pick up athletes, they don't only just pick up
Mm,
players because of their placements. And this isn't just a fighting game thing. This is just like overall, like they're picking you up because of what you do, kind of what you represent, whether obviously you choose to or not, like if it's something that you wear as a badge of honor or not or whatever. Um, and I also noticed too that like you do a little bit of hosting, a little commentary here on the side. I mean, is this kind of like the next step for CuddleCore? I mean, I'm sure you could probably keep beating Ash forever, but are we going to see you in some different platforms soon?
So yeah, I kind of I do it here and there. I do different things here and there. So yeah, I've hosted and commentated for PlayStation, but I'm a panelist. I think I'm starting to fall into the I don't know if it might end up being a motivational speaker, but I'm a public speaker. I've done a lot of panels. I've done a lot of panels,
You gonna get a
and
CuddleCore TED Talk soon? I mean, what's up?
I I'm not gonna lie. I want to
Okay.
someday. Um, I want to be very honest about everything.
Mhm.
Everything from like the good and the bad and the difficult. And I want to talk about it all. To motivate people to understand, like it's okay. I understand because I've been there and it's tough. Um, but like the accomplishments and how to focus and to stay driven. I would love to talk about those things, but I found that I love speaking and I love being able to give insight and advice to people. I think sometimes, like I said earlier, what lacks in the community sometimes is that guidance. There's no blueprint for any of this.
Right.
So I've been very happy to be kind of like that insight for people. Like people have asked me, like, "Hey, like, what can we do to like make the scene safer, or like, how can we be more welcoming for minority groups in the space?" Or when I coach women who
Mhm.
are brought on by EXO Academy,
Yep, yep, yep.
um, and I get to be that safe space for them, but they also get to be taught by someone who, is doing it, and so, like, I love that, and I think I think my next steps are definitely not just gonna be one thing. It's
Mm,
going to be multiple things, but I definitely feel like, uh, educating others, motivational speaking, panels, being on panels, giving people that insight, especially when they're trying to be pro players. Like, recently, I just did, a panel with Black Girl Gamers. They curated one with the NFL, and
wonderful.
it was amazing.
Mhm.
There were tons of students who came in. It was part of like I believe like a Madden like tournament series like weekend, um, and there were undergrad students, and they showed up, and we there was like a couple of panelists um, for the event. So then we all kind of like spoke about like our different experiences and insight when it came to navigating the space as like a CEO or like a owner of an org or a pro player or someone who works with EA or something like that. And so we all gave our insight, but it was so refreshing that like there were students who hit me up afterwards and they're like, thank you so much for giving your insight. Like I feel like I could get into the seed and like just thank you so much for really just telling your story and all this. And I'm like, oh my God, like this, I'm like, oh, like it's gonna give me tears because it's like I just, I want people to know like there are tons of ways you can maneuver this space as a player and you don't have to solely play because I depending on the game you play, that's not where you're gonna find the financial stability and you're
Right.
Right.
going to pigeonhole yourself that way. So yeah, there's a lot of things I want to do. And I want to be a global ambassador for brands that are really close to me, that have really been a huge part in my evolution as a an esports player. But anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with all of that.
Yeah.
I want to do it all
I mean,
after I'm done.
I
Why
love it.
not?
That's the type of mindset you have to have. You can't limit yourself or put yourself in a box, because the great thing about esports is that there is something for everybody. Like me personally, I found out that I was absolutely free at almost fighting games I was playing. I was like, you know what? This commentary shit actually looks kind of cool. Maybe maybe I need to be on the other side of the camera, you know.
Yeah.
But really quick, I forgot to ask you this earlier. The tag CuddleCore,
Mm.
where does that come from? Where does that originate from? And when did you know that this was going to be the tag that you're going to run with for life? Because a lot of people go through like a couple tags before they get that one that they really like.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a seamless kind of transition because at the time, like years ago, on PSN,
Mhm.
I I had another username, but I was like, I want another one. I want to change it up. And at that same time, there was a huge influence of my life, and that was Dance Dance Revolution. And
Mm.
I played it so much, and I also listened to the soundtracks, especially for Supernova, and Extreme 2 and Supernova 2. I listened
Oh
to them
my.
while I was doing homework. I was doing homework. I listened to the soundtrack. I was in 7th grade, and I loved those games so much. But there was one song I listened to a lot. It was like Murmur Twins, and it was like this Cuddlecore remix, like because Cuddlecore is like a genre of music, and I learned a lot about the origins of Cuddlecore, uh, the genre. It's really cool, but yeah. So I was like, man, I need a new username. So then I decided to go with Cuddlecore, and I didn't know that I would be tied to this name and all my accomplishments would be tied to this name like years. I didn't know. I just,
Right.
it was like, but it stuck. The other option would have been Broken Butterfly, which was the Magnum gun or whatever from Resident Evil 4, because I'm a huge Argy fan. But it worked out. It worked. But God, there are some like I always think of the alternate universe where I was Broken Butterfly instead, serious name. But I think Cuddlecore, I think it still it fits me. It still fits me.
Yeah, because I mean, there's nothing cuddly about your gameplay. I'm just gonna keep it a stack. You know what I'm
No,
saying? Like,
it's my personality. That's where it ends up coming in. The core part is where I'm just like, "Kill!"
yeah,
But, like, the the, um
Fair.
the cuddling part is just the fact that, I'm approachable, I'm
yes,
friendly, but, I'm very passionate, and I think all of that ties together with the name, so it still rings so true.
yeah. So DDR. So I mean, if we were at CEO and you weren't playing any matches, I could find you in Jabali land playing DDR. Then
I mean, if they had it there, yeah. I thought they had, like, Pump It Up or something like that.
I
With
think
the
so.
with the
Yeah,
diagonals, I said, "The diagonals!"
yeah. He rotates every so often. I'm mad I missed it this past year, but everything going on in the world. Florida is Florida. You know what I'm saying? It's probably best just to stay home. But
Yes.
wow, that's crazy. Yo, I mean, I appreciate the enthusiasm, and of course I appreciate just like everything you bring to the table because we just need more of this type of energy in this fighting game space. There's so many, like you mentioned, old heads who really just want to stick to like the old way things are ran, kind of, when a new player shows up to the community, oh, you can only be this, or boom, you can only be that. But I mean, you've kind of just like, I mean, I got to be honest, I don't know if there's many people kind of like you in fighting games where you just kind of like revitalize what the genre of being a fighting game player is, not even to put you in that type of box, but brand ambassador, working with Red Bull. I mean, of course, you are on the esports team as well. And then, of course, just being this awesome ass person and just representing what you do. I can't think of very many people like that.
It's my parents never really gave me any limitations for who or what I could be, and
Right.
I think because that exists in my life. Nobody was ever gonna put me in a box.
Mm.
My first ever student from EXO Academy, she said something along the lines of like, "Nobody can ever put Kyle in a box, like ever." And I love her so much. Ugh, God, I'm about to get, but so
All right.
she's very close to my heart.
Mhm.
She because a huge part of her reminded me of myself when I was a little bit younger, even though we're the same age. I kind of feel like I take on that sister role when I coach. But yeah, no, so because of that, she's right. I can't. Nobody's ever gonna do that. I do things my own way, and I've always been that person. If it didn't feel right for me, I didn't do it. And that's just always how I was. I didn't try to conform or, mesh into something that didn't make sense to me. So yeah, there are some people who are like, this is the way it is. Like there's always gonna be people like that in any community where it's like, this is the way it's been done, this is the way it's gonna be. But then the people in those spaces who recognize that, okay, so this is the way it was done before, and yes, it was successful, but why couldn't there be other ways to do it? And it could be just as successful or even more so, even more successful than it was before. Um, and I think those people who challenge the the way things are usually done are the people who help expand communities. They
Mhm.
grow communities, and so I think really that's just that's how it's happened for me because I was never my parents never gave me any limitations for what it could be anyway. So I'm like, fine, I'm gonna do things the way I want. If it's something I'm interested in and I'm offered the opportunity to do it, I'm gonna do it. And if I like it, I like it. And if I don't, we'll keep it moving. But there's so many things I've learned that I'm really good at by stepping outside of just playing the game. Like, like we talked about speaking,
Mm.
the hosting, the commentating. Really love commentating because I play the game anyway, so I'm already really hype about the game. So coaching, streaming, shoot, even streaming other games that aren't Tekken. I love streaming other games. I love talking to my chat. I just, you know, I I'm glad I can kind of show that there's more than one way to be successful within fighting games.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely proving that 100%. And I for my last question, and this I might be too early to ask, but I mean, just given all the things you've achieved, I mean, you have, lived a couple lifetimes over in Tekken in comparison to a lot of other players, but that's also because you've put in the time and effort. I mean, how long? Because I think you and I are about the same age. How long do you see yourself, being a competitor before you kind of step out and just do like the full time? I'm just shaping the next generation of player to be better people, to be stronger players, and whatnot.
The mogul move.
The mogul move. Like when do we see the CuddleCore coin on on crypto? I mean, what's up with it?
Hmm. So you asked like, when do I feel like I'm gonna stop competing?
Yeah.
I don't think I have an actual answer for that because I think as long as I'm around it, I'm going to want to do it. Now, to the same extent I'm doing it now and have been, it's going to be very different. It's going to be minimal. Obviously,
Yeah.
the older I get, it's going to be minimal. But I'm sure you've seen like there are tons of like older players who will get like top eights, and they're not even showing up to tons of stuff, but they're still active in
Yeah.
competing. They're just a little more low key. But they're still doing it. It's always going to be a part of me. So that's my answer. It's always going to be a part of
I
me.
like that answer.
Yeah, it's just it's bigger, smaller, but like I'm gonna be doing it, and, because I just don't think for me, it's something I can ever remove or get rid of. I'm a competitor
Yeah.
in everything I do. I'm competing against somebody else, and I'm competing with myself because 'cause I'm trying to be the best at whatever it is, so I just don't think it's gonna leave me. It's just it's too huge of a part of who I am. So, yeah.
I respect that.
That'll
You hear
work.
that, Twitch chat? You know what I'm saying? This is a seasoned veteran competitor, right? They're not here for the games, they're not here for the money. I mean, all that type of stuff is cool.
It's the pride
She's definitely here for the pride and just the
and the
competitive spirit, the nature of the sport. I love that.
I really feel like that's I've said this a lot to my friends. I'm like, especially when our game wasn't, producing crazy prize pools and pot bonuses and no, we were playing for pride. That was
Yeah.
it. It was who was besting who. Um and when you're playing for that, even when the money is there, even when it's gone, you know that love for it is there forever.
Mhm.
And that's what's kept this community, I think, around as long as it has. It's the energy and the spirit of the of the scene. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because you know what's funny is that Tekken, I've always appreciated Tekken more than some of the other fighting games. Like Street Fighter, of course, is always going to be the template, but Tekken was the one where I'm like, yo, you might have lost in Street Fighter, but you got your ass beaten Tekken. Like it's a difference. And
See me
you
in
know,
Tekken.
yeah, see me in Tekken. And so it wasn't until I want to say it was the Combo Breaker 2018, and I remember this pretty vividly. But Rick does the arena commentary, so you're sitting in the middle of the room
Yeah.
and whatever. It was I want to say it was Tasty Steve and Rip, and Tasty Steve was just absolutely losing his mind in a traditional Tasty Steve fashion, and Rip is obviously losing his
Oh, man.
brains too. But he's taking the chair and he's throwing it and shit, and that's when I realized like I think Tekken is next up.
Wait, was it
Tekken,
2019? I think it was 2019.
I think it was 2019. Yeah, you're right.
No,
You're
I'm a
right.
Tekken historian, I'm in my book,
Hey,
like look at
hey,
dude,
I
like
feel it.
Combo
But
Breaker
yeah, I think
2019?
it was that year. I was like, damn, Tekken is finally
It was
getting its
iconic.
flowers. It was
Yeah.
iconic. We're getting our fucking flowers, and I love this. This is so dope.
I couldn't agree with you more. It was wonderful to experience the energy being there, and yeah, the top eight specifically for me. I was like, oh my god! Like everybody was losing their voice, but it was beautiful. Like you said, it finally getting its flowers. But I think that started happening in 2017 when the
17?
game dropped on a console. I believe it was 2017
Ah,
for America
okay.
specifically because I believe Asia
Mhm.
got the game like 2 years before us.
I remember.
So
Yeah.
our hype for it came a little later, but I think American Tekken is some of the best Tekken when it comes to energy, talent. community. I think you'll have a good time when you come here.
Mhm. I don't know if you
Experience
know
all the
anybody at
amenities.
Tekken, but just tell them, hey, we'd like to have the game the same time as Japan has it. Because they did that with us in Tekken 6 too, if I'm not mistaken. They
Oh,
did Tekken 6 that we ended up getting BR, and I was just like, why do they get to have it so early? Why are we so late to the meta? What's up?
and I wonder if it's because of I forgot why. Because my friends have explained it to me. Because people have the same complaints.
Mm.
Totally understandable. I think it's because of maybe arcades being accessible there.
Oh, true, true.
Yeah,
Maybe
they do have that.
so try and test some things first, and then we were playing the game. We were playing, I believe maybe a year before that. I'm not too sure. We were playing Tekken in tournaments, Tekken 7 in tournaments, but we didn't have the game. So the American players were all just doing it based on like combos we would see and muscle memory and like trading strats. But like players from Asia were coming over here and like playing in our tournaments and like winning. And I'm like, but we were staying, as close as we could, but I think it was still a good learning process. But I think hopefully maybe we can all play at the same time. Hopefully at some point. Who knows? Mm.
Yes, for the next one, my fingers are crossed. Whether they do a Tekken Tag 3 or Tekken 8, I would like to have the
Ooh,
game the same time as our friends from across the pond, is all.
that would be nice. I want to be a part of the hype when it happens. Shoot.
Right. Well, Cuddlecore, I'm so happy you had a chance to get on here. I feel like I asked a lot of questions. I'm sorry, Phil and Brian. I had to fanboy a little bit. But if you guys got anything, by all means, I mean, toss it out there.
Oh,
I
you're
think you
fine. I
covered
kind of
up
led with
pretty
the
much
homemade
all the
waffles. I think
questions,
it made
Rob.
sense. Yeah, you
If they
took
wanted to
this
get
one.
their word in, they could have juggle comboed you against the wall and made
The
space.
wombo, man.
They didn't do shit.
Nah, that was good.
I'll leave.
Outstanding.
I'll save my 10 hit, for when I really need it.
Got you. Appreciate
No,
it.
Cuddlecore, thank you so much for coming onto the show. It was really nice talking to you and hearing your insight and your story, and just all of your just really like getting to the heart of electronic sports and what it means to be a true competitor. Yeah, thank you so much for talking about all of that with us. It was an honor to have you, and we'd love to have you again for sure.
Oh yeah, like most definitely. I'd love to come back and thank you for having me. I do enjoy being able to kind of give just insight where I can because sometimes I get busy and so
Mm,
it's hard for me to. Sometimes I don't get to fully talk about where I started, how I'm here, especially when sometimes people ask and I'm like, dang, sometimes I wish I had more time to thoroughly talk about it so that people, if they're trying to get into it, they kind of have something to base it off of, like, and they're like, okay, this is how she did it, or but like I'm glad I get to do it here, because then I can be thorough.
that's right.
It's yeah, and I like being thorough when I explain things because that's just it's because I care a lot. So
Oh,
thank
of
you.
course.
It's obvious that you care a
Much
lot for
appreciated
sure.
again. Thank you. This is
Yeah,
dope.
appreciate all of you. Thank you. And the questions were wonderful.
Oh, well, I try to do a little something, something, you know what I'm saying? I only am just a guy who likes Tekken, so I gotta show it some love.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much to all of you for having me here today. So thanks.
All right. Well, that has been CuddleCore, and I believe that's going to take us to the end of the show. Real quick, we could talk about the Cortex winner of the week in the Shack Pet Showdown. CuddleCore, you're free to hang around or take off if you like. Thank you again, and
Run far away, CuddleCore. Run
yeah,
far away.
but
All right.
we definitely look forward to seeing where you go from here. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Appreciate all the support and hope to talk to you all soon. Bye, everyone.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.